Walk into any classic boat show in America today and you will hear the same three words over and over. Not for sale, not at any price. Owners standing next to boats worth tens of thousands of dollars, politely refusing offers from collectors who genuinely have the cash in hand. There are roughly 15 specific old boat styles where this happens almost every single time. Boats so rare, so loved, or so irreplaceable that the people who own them simply will not let go. So today, we are going to talk about all 15 of them. The Glastron Sea Flite was Glastron's opening statement. Introduced in 1958, 2 years after Bob Hammond and Jerry Cox started the company in Austin, Texas. The Sea Flite looked like someone had parked a Cadillac Eldorado on a boat hull and decided it worked. Tail fins at the stern, two-tone gel coat, chrome details, a wraparound windshield. It was the boat that taught every other American fiberglass builder a single brutal lesson: people will pay for design. The reason owners refuse to sell a clean Sea Flite today is genuine scarcity. Production numbers were modest by Glastron standards, and the early gel coat formulations from the late 50s did not age well. Most Sea Flites you find now have been restored at least once by someone who spent 12 to 18 months getting it right. That kind of effort never gets sold at a fair price. It gets passed to the kids. So Glastron taught the industry that design sells. Next, the boat that threw the rulebook out and still won. By 1969, Glastron was big enough to do something most builders cannot afford to do: hire a small specialty company called Carlson High Performance Boats out of California, run by Art Carlson, to build something genuinely strange under the Glastron umbrella. The result was the Glastron Carlson CVX line. 20 feet of fiberglass, big block American V8, jet drive, no propeller in the water at all. Engine options were a Ford 460, a Chevrolet big block, or an Oldsmobile 455 depending on year and what Detroit was shipping. A stock CVX 20 topped out around 68 miles per hour, about 109 kilometers per hour. Modified small block versions reached 80. Owners refused to sell because the combination is genuinely irreplaceable today. Nobody builds a factory jet boat with a Ford 460 anymore. The last CVX rolled off the line in 1983. Every example still on the water is one of a finite, shrinking number. From a factory jet boat that nobody builds anymore to the boat that defined the wooden runabout shape for 2 decades. Garfield Wood did not design boats because he loved boats. He designed them because nobody else was building boats fast enough to beat him in a race. By the 1920s, he held the world water speed record. He also held it again and again. 5 different times he reset the record between 1920 and 1932. The triple cockpit layout, forward seat for guests, central seat for the driver, aft cockpit open to the transom, became the absolute defining shape of the American luxury wooden runabout for 2 decades. William Randolph Hearst owned a baby Gar. So did P.K. Wrigley of chewing gum fame. Why owners refuse to sell a genuine Gar Wood today comes down to 2 things. The mahogany itself is no longer available at that grade, and the original deck hardware was custom-cast bronze that simply cannot be replaced. A restored Gar Wood sits in a private boathouse on Lake George or Lake Tahoe and stays there for the rest of the owner's life. Now, from the wooden runabout template to the boat that genuinely could not be sunk. Of every boat on this list, the Boston Whaler 13 may be the most genuinely indestructible. Dick Fisher started experimenting with polyurethane foam in 1956. By 1958, the Boston Whaler was on the market. A 13-foot cathedral hull with 2 sponsons giving it a stable wide platform, completely foam-filled, painted gel coat fiberglass over the foam core. What made it legendary was the foam. A Boston Whaler can be cut in half with a chainsaw, and both halves will still float, still carry an engine, still drive home under their own power. The original cut-in-half demonstration was filmed at the factory in the early 60s and became one of the most shared boating commercials of the decade. Owners refuse to sell because the original cathedral hull whalers are essentially immortal. They do not rot, do not sink, do not need replacing. A 50-year-old Boston Whaler is the same boat it was the day it left the factory. Pass it to your grandchildren intact. From the unsinkable boat to one that was deliberately designed to be terrifying. Ken Baker founded Sidewinder Marine in Los Altos, California in 1969 and patented a hull design so distinctive that within 2 years, 18 different American manufacturers had attempted to copy it. The Super Sidewinder featured a 16-foot pad V hull with a flat planing surface in the center and sharp V Chinese outboard. Available as outboard, stern drive or jet drive. Engine options ran up to a 455 cubic inch V8, about 7.5 liters of displacement. The Sidewinder was genuinely fast and genuinely demanding. Owners who have one and survived their first season tend to refuse to sell because Ken Baker spent most of the 1970s in court defending the patent, and Sidewinder Marine eventually lost the central patent fight and folded by the early 90s. Every surviving genuine Sidewinder is now a piece of legal as well as boating history. Aftermarket parts essentially do not exist. Owners hoard spares, now from a patent fight that killed the company to a boat that genuinely never went fiberglass. By the mid-1950s, Chris Craft was looking at the same problem every American car manufacturer was looking at: European sports cars. The MG, the Triumph, the early Jaguar. Buyers wanted something low-slung, rakish, clearly designed for people who did not need to carry anything heavier than a picnic basket. The Continental was Chris Craft's answer, and crucially, it was their first serious move away from the traditional utility shape toward a sports car silhouette on the water. Wrap-around windshield, bucket seats, chrome details lifted straight from Detroit. Built in 18, 20, 22, and 26-foot lengths, all in mahogany. Powered by Chris Craft inline sixes from 120 to 175 horsepower, with the bigger hulls available with a 200 horsepower. Chrysler Hemi 5.8 on top. Owners refused to sell because the first year carried a distinctive gold and white interior with black alligator trim that was never repeated, and a fully original example is now genuinely rare. Loaded 26-foot examples in original condition change hands quietly at serious money when they come up at all. From a sports car on the water to the boat that put a deep V under a president's seat. Don Arano was the most decorated offshore powerboat racer in American history. 3 United States championships, 2 world titles, over 350 offshore wins. The boat, officially called the Donzi Sweet 16, was his consumer answer to the question, what does a champion racer build for the average lake boater? 24 degrees of D-rise at the transom, a Volvo or Eaton inboard-outboard drive, an aft-facing spotter seat for water skiing, a reverse shear line that looked like nothing else on the water. Top speed was 45 to 50 miles per hour, about 72 to 80 kilometers per hour. President Lyndon Johnson owned one. Owners refused to sell because Don Arano was murdered in his Miami driveway in 1987, and every surviving Sweet 16 now carries the personal signature of one of the most legendary names in American boating. The model became a memorial as much as a product. Now, from a presidential boat to the brand built so far outside the norm that owners describe it as a different planet. Howard Pipcorn started HydroStream in Minnesota in 1968 and spent the next 23 years building boats that looked like they had been drawn on a different planet. Concave V floors, pointed bows that collected spray, brutally low freeboard, colored gel coat schemes that nobody else dared run. The Vector at 17 feet 1 inch was rated to 145 horsepower and rewarded experience while punishing overconfidence in roughly equal measure. Past 60 miles per hour, the Vector needed a driver who understood exactly what the hull was doing underneath. Owners refused to sell because HydroStream closed its doors in March 1991, and the entire community that survives now is built around finding original boats and keeping them running. Every Vector you see at a lake gathering today probably has a backstory involving the previous owner refusing to let go for over a decade before finally selling to someone trusted within the HydroStream community. Now, from a boat that needs a skilled driver to a design simple enough that any teenager could build it in their garage. The Sea Flea is not a brand, it is a type. a 10-foot flat-bottom hydroplane and the most widely amateur-built design in boating history. In 1962, naval architect William D. Jackson published the Minimax plans in Science and Mechanics magazine. The plans were genuinely simple: plywood sheets, glue, basic hand tools, a small outboard. Total build cost in 1962 money was around $75. The whole boat planes on 2 sponsons, lifting almost clear off the water, with the driver's chin sitting at roughly the same height as the surface. Imagine a cafeteria tray with an outboard, and you are roughly there. Owners refused to sell because every Sea Flea on the water was built by hand by somebody, usually a father teaching a son or daughter how to use a saw. The boat carries personal labor in a way no factory hull ever can. People do not sell their kids' first woodworking project. From a homemade plywood hydroplane to the wooden runabout brand that essentially defined what an expensive American boat should look like. John L. Hacker is credited with inventing the V-hull that changed how fast boats interact with water. His original V-bottom design dates to 1904, when his racing boat Au Revoir became the fastest motorboat in America. By the 1920s, Hacker was selling his V-hull designs to builders across the country, and Hacker Craft itself was building hand-finished mahogany runabouts at the absolute premium end of the market. Hacker Crafts were hand-built mahogany inboards where the varnish work alone could take weeks. 8 to 12 coats of marine varnish hand-rubbed between layers, chrome hardware, leather interior trim. Owners refuse to sell because the build standard is genuinely impossible to replicate today at any price. The mahogany grade required no longer exists in the commercial supply chain. Hand-rubbed varnish technique requires skills almost extinct outside a handful of specialist restorers in upstate New York. A Hacker Craft in a family is never up for sale. It is part of the estate. Now, from the V-hull that defined American performance to the deck shape that defined American luxury. The barrelback is the shape that comes to mind when most people picture a classic wooden speedboat. A rounded, curved transom sweeping down into the hull in a continuous arc instead of ending in a flat vertical surface. Chris Craft introduced the design in 1939 and produced it only until 1942. When World War II stopped recreational boat production entirely. The rounded stern was not decorative, it was structural, and it happened to make the boat look like it was moving while sitting still at the dock. Only 433 hulls were built across the entire production run. By the time recreational manufacturing resumed in 1945, the barrelback was never revived at scale. Owners refuse to sell because there are simply not enough left. A fully restored barrel back at a top auction can clear over $100,000, about 4 times the price of an equivalent later runabout. And the families who own them tend to be exactly the families who can comfortably ignore that kind of offer. Now, from a wooden style built for 3 years to a wooden style built for 40. Century Boat Company was founded in 1926 in Milwaukee by James and William Welch. They moved the factory to Manistee, Michigan in 1928 and introduced the Resorter in 1947 as their accessible wooden runabout. Not as expensive as a Gar Wood, not as prestigious as a Hacker Craft, but solidly built, properly finished, and within reach of the upper middle market. The Resorter carried 3 to 5 people, topped out around 40 miles per hour, and did it with a varnished mahogany deck reflecting the afternoon sun back at the driver. Century called the line the thoroughbred breed of boats. Production ran into the 1960s. Owners refused to sell because Century proved you did not need a Gar Wood budget to own a beautiful varnished wooden runabout, and the families who picked one up in the 50s or 60s tend to still have them today. A Century Resorter is the boat your grandfather bought, that your father grew up in, and that you spent every August weekend on as a kid. That kind of object does not have a price. From the accessible wooden runabout to the boat that genuinely created an entire new boating category. Walter Maloon founded the Florida Variety Boat Company in 1925 in Pine Castle, Florida. He renamed it Correct Craft in 1936. The original fiberglass ski Nautique was designed by Leo Bentz in 1957 as a tournament water ski boat. Open cockpit, low freeboard, varnished wooden interior trim, direct drive inboard amidships. Before the ski Nautique, ski boats were general-purpose runabouts adapted for towing skiers behind them. After the ski Nautique, ski boats became their own engineering discipline. Flat wakes, predictable pull, weighted hulls. The whole modern water ski industry traces directly back to that 1957 Benz design. Owners refused to sell an original ski Nautique because the design defined what a towboat should be, and the originals carry an honesty that the modern tournament boats have moved away from. Plus, most of the surviving examples are owned by people who learned to slalom behind them in the 60s and 70s. Now, from the boat that invented water skiing as a sport to the boat that invented the catamaran racing category. Bob and Dave Switzer started building wooden race boats in McHenry, Illinois in 1946. In 1961, Dave Switzer designed and built the Switzer Hydro-Cat catamaran in roughly 8 days, specifically to enter a marathon endurance race held on Lake Winnebago in Wisconsin. The boat won. It also genuinely shocked everyone present. Kierkefer Mercury, watching from the dock, immediately bought the exclusive rights to the 18-foot fiberglass wing and ordered 34 of them to be built as factory racing boats for Mercury teams. That single order put Switzercraft on the map. Owners refused to sell because the surviving original wooden Hydro-Cats are essentially unique. 8 days of fast construction in 1961 is not a production run anybody can repeat. Each one carries the personal signature of Dave Switzer himself. Bill Combs and his partner Bill Downward started Checkmate in Bucyrus, Ohio in 1963. They spent the first decade building single-engine outboard performance boats that won races. The larger manufacturers preferred not to think about. The Exciter from the 1970s was the heart of the consumer lineup, 16 to 18 feet. Outboard performance hull, quicker off the line than its size suggested. John Spither, a former Canadian Checkmate dealer, kept setting class records into the 1990s with modified Exciters built in the 70s. That kind of multi-decade competitive lifespan is genuinely unusual. Owners refused to sell because Checkmate proved a small Ohio shop could compete on raw performance with anybody in California or Florida, and the brand still has one of the most loyal owner communities in vintage American boating. An original Exciter in clean condition sits in the workshop next to family photographs, not really for sale, just part of the household. So, if you enjoyed this one, go watch our deep dive on the 15 most dangerous boats no longer built today. Similar era, very different stories. So, which of these 15 would you genuinely refuse to sell? Drop it in the comments. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks.